Good morning, everyone. Bear with, we're just going to admit everyone into the meeting. So, Microsoft Fabric and why it matters now. So, just give you guys a little bit of that background on myself and why we've kind of put this webinar together. So, my name is Chris Kirk. I head up the hybrid cloud data delivery part of the organization as the PS director. I have been quite interesting. I was putting this together for this webinar, looking back on how long I've been doing this, and it's slightly scary how fast time flies. I cannot believe, I started my IT career about 20 years ago, back doing in the on-prem days, going through into Azure before even virtual machines were a thing in Azure, and nowadays building everything and anything for data analytics, enterprise AI, Azure solutions with the team that I've got here as well. So I'm here basically to help really demonstrate the power of the frontier services that Microsoft are bringing to the table and kind of what that looks like in the real world, and trying to give everyone a little bit of direction in what is a very fast moving target in a lot of these services on that side of things. So for Microsoft Fabric, we felt the time was right now to really talk about some insight into data analytics and Microsoft Fabric as a bit of an overview. And that's because there's been some recent conferences where Microsoft has done a lot of announcements. We've seen a lot of acceleration of features that were given early signs of, I say about 6 months ago, and the fact that they're now either in general availability or they're very advanced in terms of that public preview status. And it really just shows the direction that Microsoft is pushing these things in as they're kind of learning from you guys, to be honest, from customers' experiences, customers' journey, what they're using today, what their challenges are right now. So we felt now is the time to kind of give back a little bit of an overview about what Fabric is, just to get everyone kind of up to speed, a bit of a recap. Why, when I'm talking to customers, people are really looking at this right now. What are the new things in Fabric, the real big ticket items that we're seeing as well, which, as you can see on my screen, 5, 6, and 7, I'm going to go into a little bit of detail on those big ticket items and start off with a bit of a summary, and then kind of round it off with why us? Why Trustmark Ultima in terms of aligning yourselves to us in terms of this journey around your data analytics and your BI requirements and your kind of AI requirements as well on that side of things. So we start with obviously our why now, because that's obviously in the title of the webinar, and it's very much a why now in terms of what is it about data analytics today that's really spearheading and driving these conversations. And that's mainly down to a couple of reasons. When I talk to clients at the moment around their data readiness, looking at their underlying data, there's a lot of spread going on all over the place. There's a lot of SQL databases, there's spreadsheets, there's warehouses, there's lake houses. It's all done in little bits of pockets all over the place in terms of their business data. But you're under more and more pressure to show, I guess, value and report on what you believe is the truth to your business. You need to put those reports together based on that data to show business direction, either financial based reporting or spearheading projects into the delivery, or giving information back out to your customer base. And that is also kind of driving the AI demand as well, because AI, you're probably sick of hearing this, but it's all about the data from an AI perspective. If you don't have that data, that underlying data kind of solidified, understood, kind of galvanized together, then a lot of these AI initiatives are not really going anywhere, because you just don't trust kind of what is going on from that perspective as well. And at the end of it, cost and risk, these things are moving so fast from an AI perspective, especially. You're seeing a lot of complexity out there. You need a bit more semblance of trying to simplify things down to get the value back, basically. And when I talk to customers, it rarely starts by just saying, I need Fabric. It starts with, I've got duplicated data, I've got some aging SQL estates, I'm under pressure to become AI ready and give that single source of truth and make that things easier for my business. And that's kind of where we're having these conversations a lot of the time. It's about building you a single solution that you can then leverage your AI requirements, leverage your reporting off on that side of things as well. And when we look at Fabric as a bit of an overview, kind of where we were before kind of Fabric really started to come on strong. When I talk to a lot of customers, even today, customers will have things like Azure Synapse for their big data and analytics as a service. But they'll also have SQL databases for warehousing. They'll also have things like Data Factory for their ingestion. They'll also have, sorry, a bit of a typo there. They'll also have Power BI for their semantic and BI reporting as well. But these are all individual services in their own sphere. They all have separate dotted lines of security, have separate role-based access controls, and therefore you're adding risk, you're adding complexity because they're all managed kind of separately to each other. And as a result, you've got a lot of duplication going on in terms of the fact that Synapse, you can kind of tie warehousing and SQL databases together, but it's not the easiest thing in the world. But you don't have that underlying kind of single data source for all of it under the covers. And that's really where Fabric comes on song. The fact that it's a fast or PaaS-based service, you scale it up as you need to scale it. So you build it, and then as you start using it more and more, you can absolutely scale it without breaking things down or pulling things apart as it waits as those components. But you get all of these features all built in the same single platform. So the data ingestion, you get data in for Data Factory, you get data engineering for lake houses, and your more advanced data analytics such as Spark, Apache Spark notebooks for engineering workflows. Power BI is built into your semantic models. Data warehousing is built into it. Data science is built into it for machine learning and AI functions. And as you're seeing it today in this webinar, data agents are now really coming on in terms of a feature within Fabric that allows you to have that natural language across this solution. And really, the big thing about this is because this is backed by Microsoft OneLake, it is one logical data storage service for all of these services overall. You've got one copy of the data that encompasses everything all in one particular service. And that means that you are massively simplifying and you're massively reducing storage or reducing risk of data duplication and working on old data over left field where you're actually working on the right field. And it means that all of these features use a single source of data. It means that governance and security is much simpler as well from that perspective. And because Microsoft have built this on the Open Delta format, as you'll see later on, we're going to talk a little bit about Databricks and what that means for that as well. It's worth shouting out that storage costs for OneLake are really, really cheap. So if you are using SQL today, well, there may be some reasons behind that. Generally speaking, it's much cheaper than paying for managed disks attached to virtual machines, for example, on that side of things. So when customers come to me to talk about data analytics, and inevitably Microsoft Fabric comes up, there's generally speaking a few reasons why these conversations are happening today. I know I've talked about those separate services for things like Synapse and SQL databases and stuff like that. But really, on top of things like the data duplication and those reasons and the AI pressure that obviously is coming along as well. The other reason, just to highlight for all of those things, is also some end-of-life services coming up as well. So I talked to a lot of customers today at the moment about SSRS, for example. So SQL Server 2025 is basically the final version of SSRS. Microsoft are encouraging people onto Fabric or the Power BI reporting server if you can't use cloud for whatever reason. But SSRS is effectively going end of life. They are going to continue supporting it from a security perspective, but there are no more features going to be released for SSRS on that side, just to signal some intent from Microsoft. And things like the Power BI capacity units, if you're on an enterprise agreement, as your EAs are coming to an end, those Power BI capacity P1, P2s, they are end of life. They have been end of life since mid-2024. But if you're on an EA agreement, they've just continued on until you get to the end of that EA agreement. And then at that point, you need to migrate to Fabric. You don't have, you've got to do it basically. Otherwise, within 30 days, you'll start to be throttled. And then within 90 days, you are risking data deletion if you don't do that migration exercise onto Fabric as well on that side of things. So I'm talking to customers not just about the really amazing features that you get through having this centralized system, but there's also some end of life and a real chance to look at that modernization and kind of jumpstart that modernization because of some of those deprecated technologies that you may have in your sphere on that side of things. And really that plays nicely into kind of the direction of travel that we're seeing. This is not necessarily new features that I want to talk about here. I'm going to talk about that in a second. This is more to do with a signal of intent from Microsoft in terms of where they're investing their time and their money into something like data analytics. So we're seeing increasing AI native and analytics capabilities in something like Microsoft Fabric. So we're seeing things like Copilot integrations with data agents. We're seeing much more improved natural language, the SQL capabilities in data agents, which I'm going to talk a little bit about in a minute. We're seeing much more push with OneLake capabilities. And I've got a little bit meat on the bones on that shortly as well. SQL modernization since November 2025, maybe slightly a little bit before that. If you are very SQL orientated, especially from a SQL query perspective and a T-SQL query perspective, you're seeing more and more native SQL capabilities being put into Fabric to make that journey simpler for you and your teams. And we're also seeing operational intelligence really start to improve as well, which is a bit of a niche area, but I'm just going to talk a little bit about it towards the end, just to show you kind of what that actually means for that particular feature as well. So in terms of what's new in Fabric, like I said, I'm going to elaborate on this over a few slides, but there's been a lot of change in the last 6 months. I would have to spend hours with you guys going through literally everything that they've added and improved into the platform. So really for today, I wanted to pick out the recent big things as I see it that I'm talking to customers about from a Fabric perspective, that where they've really added significant new capabilities. So as I've mentioned, conversational ready analytics is becoming much more powerful. So we have the ability to call NL to SQL, which is natural language to SQL through data agents. Effectively, that gives you two angles from a data engineering perspective. It allows you in a Copilot-like interface to basically ask questions of your data. It will then convert that into SQL syntax off the back of it, and then pull the data back for you as well. And we're seeing that also from a BI perspective when you're looking for data and you're trying to build that out as well. OneLake, we're seeing better storage tiering and lifecycle management, which is brilliant. The fact that everything is not necessarily needed in the lakehouse running hot all the time. We want to maybe start aging out some data, but have it just in case on that side of things. Databricks is going to have better integration through OneLake, which again I'm going to elaborate on a little bit. And then SQL, like I say, warehousing and SQL endpoints. If you are a SQL house and you want to carry on doing that, you absolutely can do that as well. And for me, the data agent side of things is probably one of the most interesting areas that has really improved over the last 3 to 4 months. The fact that I can, rather than having to, from a BI perspective, apply filters and slicers, do some manual analysis, have a look at the data, the fact that I can ask effectively an agent to help me query it from a BI perspective or from a data engineering perspective, get access to the information that I'm after, is a massive game changer. We're already working with a few customers on this, even though some of this is still in public preview. The fact that you can just get through what is a larger amount of data more often than not to get some decent answers quickly is going to really, I think, change direction, and it means it's just much easier for your BI or data engineers to get access to some data quickly rather than having to build out complex queries, which you're still going to need to a degree. That's not going to go away completely. if you're having to do complex joining, for example, around different tables and different data sets, you're still probably going to need it for that. But for more, I guess, simplistic queries, rather than having to write all that out, really, really good on that side of things as well. The other big thing, like I've said, is because OneLake is written on the Open Delta format in terms of its storage capability. This gives a massive bonus to Databricks. So if you're not familiar with Databricks, Databricks is another data analytics platform that runs on Azure. It also runs on AWS and GCP. It's not a Microsoft product, but it has been around for a long, long time. They are pretty much one of the class leaders when it comes to machine learning AI models off of data from a notebook, a Spark, or MLflow and PyTorch requirements as well. But up until around, I'd say, January or February time, and then becoming much more generally available May and June time, you had to basically duplicate data between something like Fabric and Databricks, depending on what you're doing. So we've got a lot of customers that use both, to be clear, today. But it meant that because I'm duplicating data, it just added a lot of complexity, a lot of cost, a lot of time, effort, blood, sweat, and tears. Now we have proper OneLake integration with Databricks. So if Fabric is using the OneLake for your Fabric orchestration, your Fabric requirements, if you then are using Databricks for your very heavy machine learning AI requirements and building things out in Databricks, you're using the same underlying storage as what Fabric is using at the same time. You're not duplicating things. You're having simplified governance. It's a massive game changer in terms of that area as well. And for people that have not used Databricks, you're hearing me say a lot about AI machine learning, for example. That is what Databricks kind of is its party piece. I'm not doing it very good service, I must admit. But where you have an enormous amount of data and you're trying to do heavy machine learning, look at trends, predictions, anomaly detections. We work with a customer at the moment. They've got an enormous amount of data. They're looking for basically anomalies around fraud, for example, in costs. That's where Databricks shines, basically, where you have that very, very large data, and you need real heavy machine learning on that side of things as well. So from a SQL perspective, when I've talked to customers about Fabric, probably in the last 18 months, there has been this slight nervousness. The fact that, it feels like everything's moving slightly away from SQL potentially. A lot of customers I speak to, especially from the Microsoft stack, we've done a lot of investment in SQL. We've got a lot of skills in SQL. It's kind of making me a little bit nervous in terms of the direction, and I need a bit more kind of clarity on that as well. And Microsoft knows this as well, and that's why in the last 6 months especially, you've seen much more SQL capabilities being kind of shorn up or elevated or improved across data engineering and across reporting and BI services as well. So SQL databases are now supported inside of Fabric as is. It's a version of PaaS Azure SQL. So to be clear, if you're using things like SQL agents on a virtual machine where you're writing to like the C drive, the D drive, or whatever that may be, that's not going to work in that particular version of SQL like it wouldn't work on PaaS SQL, but it is SQL nonetheless that you can run inside of Fabric nowadays as well as a database technology. We've still got warehousing capabilities built into that as well, and we've got direct lake capabilities inside of Power BI, semantic models, and Power BI direct query is also not going away. That's also being improved. But the other big thing is SQL endpoints are also being improved as well. And I'm going to jump out of this just for a second just to demonstrate, hopefully, something very quickly. So if you guys are not familiar with Fabric, if I go to my demo workspace, I've only got one. These are a workspace represents all of the resources that you have in a particular Fabric project. So this would contain my lake houses, this would contain my semantic models, my BI reporting, my data integration, data factory pipelines, any kind of notebooks I'm doing from an AI perspective as well. And really, all I wanted to demonstrate was a couple of things. One is to demonstrate that a workspace is a logical container. You can apply security to that container. So it means that it's really easy from a security perspective to give people access or prevent them, as it were. And what you'll see here, if I take my bronze lakehouse as an example, if I go to the lakehouse view, it will give me everything in this lakehouse view. So it's going to be, this is structured and unstructured data. This is just dummy data I've got from a medical side of things as well, if I close that off. So if I go to pretty much anything on this table, it's all file-based data, for example. It's all text-based data. But what's also been created for me is, if I go here, a SQL endpoint. So I can now query all of this lakehouse through SQL syntax, basically. I can write any standard SQL query I want, or I can write GraphQL queries if I really want to do from an API perspective. But it just means that you can attach these endpoints to the lakehouse and still query from a SQL perspective on that side of things. I've still got my table views, I've still got my database views, whatever I want to look at basically as well. Just to demonstrate to you very, very quickly kind of the direction of travel. The SQL is absolutely not going anywhere. In fact, it's getting more and more powerful from that perspective as well. And that is the same from a warehousing perspective in Fabric as well. We're seeing things like alter table expansion in terms of query capabilities, copy into for JSON files, AI developer push for SQL, and we're seeing better capabilities around DevOps and CI/CD for SQL analytics endpoints. So if you're trying to push changes into your analytics project from a DevOps perspective, it now supports SQL analytics endpoints as well on that side of things. And also in public preview is time travel for SQL endpoints as well. So that means that if you want to go back and look at historic data rather than the old school way of doing it, which I've seen previously, where if you're on a SQL server, you would restore a backup and then query that backup. You have a time travel window of, I think it's about 120 days that you can go back to and look at historical data through the SQL endpoint as well on that side of things. So in terms of the core features, what this then evolves into when I'm talking to the customers about this is this kind of hierarchy of need and ordering of things around things like data analytics. I've talked to some customers where they can see the benefit of Fabric, they can see the benefit of building enterprise AI models, but I've seen so much kind of risk where you need to get that infrastructure foundation working correctly and then apply Fabric and then apply your enterprise AI if you so need that from a Foundry perspective. So from an infrastructure perspective, making sure your core architecture, your core networking is set up, identity and entry ID is set up properly, resiliency and cost governance is set up properly. Things like private endpoints, for example, in networking is completely supported by Fabric. So if you want to have some data sources and make it super secure in terms of Fabric can only access, for example, a storage accounts or virtual machines within that network, absolutely you can do that. But you need to get that infrastructure level working correctly before you then start applying Fabric kind of on top in a production setting as well. It's so important because it's not impossible, it's just very challenging if you then have to then do it in reverse, basically, on that side of things. And like a lot of these things, security is a big part of this. It's making sure that Fabric and Foundry, if you are using Microsoft Foundry from an enterprise AI model perspective, it's just making sure everything is secured, the data is good, data is good quality, only certain services and systems and people can access that data because of what it is. It's just all best practices and belt and braces from that perspective as well. And that's kind of what myself and the team here are doing right now with a lot of customers. We are there working with the infrastructure layer. We are there helping you build up that layer. Because from my perspective at Trustmark Ultima, the data consultancy side of delivery and cloud are actually the same team under my remit. They're not siloed. They all work together because there's so much overlap going on between these, and it just doesn't work if you have a segregated data team and a segregated cloud team on these projects anymore, especially in the new world way of working. The last thing I just wanted to cover off on this other things was just the advanced stuff, as I call it, which is the real-time intelligence side of things. So this is where if you have a lot of devices that are generating a lot of data, a lot of telemetry data, such as IoT devices, this is where in Fabric we now have the ability to basically pull and ingest that data in at large scale in real time. We have something called an event house, which is written in KQL rather than SQL. An event house, like a lake house, is there to pull in that telemetry data, and it means that I can then have an event-driven architecture kind of off the back of it. I can have real-time dashboards off that real-time data so I can see effectively what is happening, but I can also use it as an event-driven action for my business. I can have it as an activator, I can have it as a business event, and working with a couple of organizations at the moment that are trialing this out, this is a great lever for process automation off the back of it for their business. They are monitoring for certain events, and basically, to give you a really extreme example, manufacturing would monitor for wear and tear on certain end devices in a manufacturing setting, and that's because every point of downtime or every moment of downtime is critical to their business. So they need to basically get ahead to make sure that if parts need replacing, they can do it in a controlled manner, not when they fail and they have to then basically do something very quickly. They have to go and sort the parts or whatever that may be as well. So in this example, from a telemetry perspective, the activator and the business event is when they are looking for anomalies in that telemetry data, such as in this particular example, they were looking for a high RPM was a particular warning sign for them. That activator for them was to kick off process automation to basically go and check they had the parts in stock. It would then use AI to generate notes in their CRM and emails to managers to say, we need a change window within X number of days for this device for this reason. Can we go and basically schedule that in for change control procedures as well, please? It's a really cool example of basically being proactive and controlling that downtime. That means they're maximizing, they're minimizing the loss in terms of their business process as well. But this could be any particular process as well. This could be if you need to order new hardware for IT kits, you want to make sure that you've always got some hardware on tap. Should any parts particularly fail, network devices, hard drives, anything you might have from a data center perspective, because hardware is very hard to get hold of at the moment. There's a long wait time for a lot of data center hardware. So again, if you're looking at this, you could use exactly that same scenario for that scenario as well as an activator and a business event as well. So really, really cool example of what real-time analytics can do, all within the same platform as your data analytics solution as well, I should add. So to round this off, this is a little bit about how we help our customers on this journey. Why the Trustmark Ultima point that I made at the beginning of the webinar. What are we seeing out there with customers? How do we approach this? And what you're going to see 1, 2, 3, 4 on the screen right now is not to say that you have to start at point 1. You might already be there. You might already have the unification of your data. You might have the business case and the roadmap. You might understand where all of your data is. You need to consolidate and have a look at as well. You might already have your data organization readiness done in terms of your ownership, your skills, the operating model, the foundations of your data may already be understood. Fantastic if that's the case. We can then accelerate that out into kind of technical readiness from that point of view. But the point is, we can start anywhere on this journey to a degree. If you really don't have a real understanding of your data, if you're sat there thinking, we've got some data in SharePoint, we've got some data in SQL, We don't really have things like purview for classification. I don't know how sensitive some of this data is that we've got access to. Does it contain financial information or heaven forbid, things like passwords and stuff like that? Then maybe unification of data and data organizational readiness. That's something we can help you with definitely on that side of things as well, and accelerate for you on that side of things. But then we can help you with the Azure infrastructure in terms of building that underlying architecture, and then accelerate that out into Fabric as well from our data analytics side of things as well. And the point I want to make with this is when we get down to the infrastructure scope and the build out, we have funding available to do this from Microsoft. We have what we call Azure Accelerate, and we have what we call ESIF funding as well. So when we get down to the actual nitty gritty of building something out in Azure, we have real generous funding from Microsoft to help kind of lower the commercials from a professional services perspective as well. And when you do get down to that tech layer, we've got multiple different options available for customers depending on kind of what you're looking for. We've got 1-hour consultations available as pre-sales. There's no charge for that. If you just want to talk about a requirement that you think you've got for data analytics or that data readiness or the unification of data, absolutely talk to your account manager if you're already with us. Please contact us via the website. We're absolutely happy to do that from a pre-sales perspective. And when you get down to the tech layer and you're looking at data analytics in particular, we have proof of concepts available. If you really wanted to do a POC that's bespoke to you, we generally do that around taking a couple of ingestion points. We do a single bit of data transformation, single bit of modeling, single bit of BI, just to if you want to prove something out effectively on that side of things. They start at around a ballpark around 10K for our bespoke POCs. But then when we go into actual production, that's where the funding effectively kicks in. And that's where, even though you might be spending a little bit on a POC, you're basically making it back potentially if that POC succeeds and you move into production. Because that's where, as a business, we have got anything from $2,000 to $75,000 of funding available for Fabric and Azure as well per project. So you're kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul a little bit as well on that side of things in terms of what that looks like. And lastly, for me, is just to kind of solidify the why Trustmark Ultra side of things. No webinar would be complete without a few badges kind of thrown around and a few stats thrown around. So one thing I'm really proud of with the team that we've got and where we are going and have grown as an organization, we have very good relationships with Microsoft, and that means that we have been able to get a lot of funding for Fabric and Azure through since January 2025. So as you can see on screen, we've managed to secure about $850,000 of professional services funding through Microsoft. But that's possible because we have gone through audits, we have gone through third-party specialization reviews to get the badges that you see on screen around infrastructure, around data and AI, analytics specialization, around our Microsoft Azure Expert MSP badges as well. We've even been nominated by Microsoft as a Fabric featured partner earlier in the year as well because of the good work that we've been able to demonstrate with Fabric and data analytics for our customers as well. And that goes kind of hand in hand with our traditional data center business as well on that side of things. We've got really good skills across the board from that side of things as well, not just the data analytics bits and bobs. Just last thing from me, just a little bit of, I guess, housekeeping in a way. If you wanted more tactical engagements, they are absolutely possible in terms of our sphere of engagement. If you already had Fabric or you had an existing data platform and you wanted to have a bit of a review, we can absolutely do that for you as well. If you wanted to have a look at, I mentioned SSRS at the beginning of the call, the P1s at the beginning of the call. If you want to have a look at a migration exercise, what that may look like, absolutely we can do that, and we have been doing that for a lot of customers on that side of things as well to get that up and running. And if you wanted just to have a look at any kind of architecture or design, you may already have things like Fabric and OneLake and warehouses and lake houses, even Databricks already in. If you wanted to have a second pair of eyes, have a look at that from an architectural perspective, absolutely we can do that and have been doing that for customers as well on that side of things. I'm going to send the slides out after this session as well, and a bit of a summary. You'll get a couple of links in terms of a couple of white papers, just generalized white papers that we are working on, and there's a couple of more I'm going to release very, very soon. If you are interested, we've got another webinar coming up around hybrid infrastructure. So what that means from a VMware story, what that means from a hypervisor and a next generation data center, especially from an AI perspective, what that actually means, and the directions that we are seeing out there as well on that side of things. I'm just going to check the chat just to see, because I'm going to ask the question. Well, does anyone want to have a stab at any questions on anything that I've just covered at all? Feel free to ask on the chat. Feel free to speak up. So I've got a question: can Fabric directly access AWS data, or will it need to be ingested into Fabric? So we can do both. So it can access either the data directly in AWS. We can copy it in if you want to, because you might want to transform that data, or we can potentially look at putting in some mirroring or shortcuts. It depends on the data source itself, but both are technically possible. It's the same for GCP as well, or Oracle. There are connectors for those other providers as well for things like Fabric on that side of things as well. Thank you for the question. Does Fabric capacity cover elastic pools with the data needs to be in OneLake? So you can still use the elastic pools, and you can use what we call shortcutting potentially for the data. We would recommend you start looking at OneLake in general anyway, just because you're going to get a lot more features out of it. But you can potentially use shortcuts off of the elastic pools into a lakehouse inside of Fabric on that side of things as well. Again, we need to do a bit more digging on that side of things, but it is certainly possible on that side of things as well. Ooh. Oh, I will leave it there. I will leave it there. Thank you so much, everyone, for your help. Oh, we've got one more question. So just got a question on the Oracle side of things. I will get you some details on that, on the Oracle point specifically, and some light information, and then I can come back to you on that one in terms of what that looks like basically as a next step. But yes, there is some Oracle connectivity available for that sort of things as well. Perfect. Well, thank you everyone so much for your time. I know everyone is insanely busy that I speak to these days, so really, really appreciate it. I hope that's been useful in terms of giving you a bit of a lay of the land and where Fabric is going and kind of how we're helping customers with things as well on that side of things. Like I say, I'm going to send out a summary email with the slides that I presented as well, just to give you a bit more information. But honestly, if you've got any questions, anything at all, if you're already engaged with us, please contact your account manager. We're more than happy to help. If you are new and you've discovered this webinar, please just contact us on the website as well. And just leave you with, again, thank you so much and have a lovely rest of your day. Thanks all.